Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of our Let's Talk Arsenal series. But this is the first of our honeymoon series. I am not actually here and you are not actually watching this live. So those that are throwing in questions into the chat box, as this is going to premiere, so there will still be a live chat box running whilst the show is there. I can only apologize that I am plainly just ignoring you. But I'm not. I am away right now. But this is the first of what is going to be a series of pre-recorded shows that are going to be going out. I'm hoping for as many days as possible. There may be one show that I do in Mauritius. The only reason why I'm saying that is because today, as we record this now on Monday, the 12th of September, we found out the Brentford game is actually going ahead. So I may end up doing a reaction to that out there if I can sneak away for 10 to 15 minutes. I'm sure I can. It's a pretty big hotel. She won't find me if I just sneak away and talk about Arsenal for 15 minutes at some point. But actually, the game goes ahead about 2 hours after we land. So it's going to be a case of trying to rush her, saying that there's like kind of, there's like a welcome event or something like that. They've got to get to the hotel by 4 o'clock local time, when actually it's just so I can watch the Arsenal game. I'm just such a lovely husband. Let's introduce you my guests for today's show. I'm first of all joined by Magic Mike. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
I'm doing well. I'd just like to say RIP to Tom's marriage. I don't know anyone else I would be saying that to, but yeah, this is the beginning of the end, folks, and you're here to witness it. I am in the chat right now, probably, unless I just didn't unless I just didn't bother waking up at 6 a.m. Or whenever this is airing, but so if you
when do you think it's airing, Mike? When do I air shows? What time is it going to
be? That would be 8 a.m. and I actually might be up. And if you put questions into the chat, I will certainly answer them on behalf and with the full blessing of Thomas Canton Jr.
Yes, as long as you behave yourself, you can be my admin for the day.
Okay, that might not work out.
Your fee gets no higher though than the zero that it is. But there you go. Let's bring in our next guest, the other half, who is, when I say half, I kind of mean like 17% of the Gooners Pod. It's Andy. How you doing, Andy? You good?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. I say 17%, not because you feature so little, but because there's just now so many people that are on the Gooners Pod. 17% is probably about accurate.
You actually did the maths, because that is 17% is 1/6 if you round it up.
It's actually that's mental.
He hands out seats to our podcast like it's Willy Wonka walking around. Hey, if you want your pod to just crumble while you're away on your honeymoon, don't let him be your let him be your admin.
Yeah. I'm tempted. I could actually make him a genuine admin of the channel. I think that might go too far. I don't know if I can relinquish that much control.
You've recently seen me respond to being bestowed with responsibility, and you know that I can pull it off. I just need about 8 months of preparation.
Yes.
I will tell you, the admin power gets to your head because I block Mike Hers when he's on our pod in the group in the comment section.
He just sticks his hand up and it's like, you're gone.
What we did, of course, was we did the live show in North. I kept saying North London. It's like Northeast, East kind of London. Yeah. And the Ridley Road Social Club with your fine self hosting, of course. I was very kindly invited alongside Sophie and Harry and FK and James Bench to do that. It was an amazing event. But Mike literally wrote more words than I've written for Football London since I arrived at the company in preparation for that live event.
I invited you into my.
It was like little slips of paper with it
was 9 pages, which about an hour before I cut into little things because I didn't want you to make a comment about how I had a book with me, so I turned them into little like card type of things, and it's a little.
I did for my wedding speech, like genuinely.
I come across as the person who would just like have the least preparation for anything in the world, but now you've been invited into my process, and I think you could say that it worked.
Mike, you over prep so much, it's like you've under prepped.
I go all around. If I were
it's a full circle.
It's like when you screw the carton on top of milk and it goes so far, you're tightening it, it actually untightens itself.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. Anyway, let's finish today's panel with, of course, a fine friend of the show. It's been a while. You may not be able to see his face because he's just so lazy he doesn't want to put a camera on. It's Drew. How you doing, Drew? You good? You well?
No, we can tell the truth. I'm working, so.
Hey, look, we did this pre-recorded, so you could.
Why are you working on a Sunday morning? It's like 3 a.m. where you are.
He's committed to the company, man.
I am good though. It's good to be back with you guys. And every time I'm on with Mike and Andy, they remind me that I always miss them because the antics are always hysterical pre-record. So it's good to be back with them both. So.
Indeed, yes. Yeah. It's TGC After Dark will never happen because I value my career. But,
could have been one of the tables at your wedding had you guys not been, had stuff. So,
I mean, yes, you had. I mean, Andy was officiating, and otherwise, as excuses go, not to come to weddings. That's pretty good,
Yeah, no, it was a good one, and I'm sorry I missed it. I truly am. I will say that in the little lead up to this, like 2 hours ago, Mike and I were going at each other pretty hard, and I just love how just Tom continues other conversations while Mike and I are being 8-year-olds.
Yeah, I just kind of learned to. You remember, I was a teacher, so I can just switch off from petulant children bickering. Yes, I could do it fairly easily. Anyway, as always, when Mike and Andy, less so Drew, although his answers are lengthy enough anyway that usually we get to 6 minutes before we start the main content. They're the three guys that get to bully on my shows, which I appreciate. I have too much respect for all of our other guests that come on, but we obviously do end up starting these shows about 6 or 7 minutes into the actual introduction. But the reason why we're doing this show, of course, on the morning of the Brentford game is to kind of look back at the season thus far. We're going to talk about all the successes, the failures, and of course some of the problems that we faced mainly in the last week because of postponements and what that might mean for the future as well. But Mike, just as we kind of get the raw reactions, to use some TGC terminology, what have you made of the season thus far, and why are we top of the league somehow?
It's crazy because as great as everything was a couple of weeks ago, whether it's the capitulation against Manchester United, whether it's the which can be argued was either bad luck or naivety rather than poor play, whether it's just the storm of uncertainty about the postponements and the fixture congestion and what will and won't happen, it feels like we're in crisis mode again. But I mean, we literally are top of the league right now, and the one game that we lost, I don't think was down to just finally coming up against good opponents because and the first 5 weren't. It was just Old Trafford away and perhaps some naivety, perhaps a couple moments of madness, playing too high a defensive line and not respecting what their individual players can do. So I don't think we were even the worst team in that. So, this season so far has been a smashing success in my eyes. I mean, we've carried the momentum from the summer, which can often be deceiving. The summer can flatter to deceive.
Flatline. Oh, flatter to deceive, yeah. I was going to say flatline. That's very different.
Those two, although if you were flatlining, you would be flattering to deceive. But yeah, it's really just continued, and it's hard to say it's not a reality to this team. I mean, the turning the corner thing is something I always get cautious to apply to this team, because just when you think we show our inexperience, and we show the mentality just somehow comes out strange, and we lose a game to Everton. So maybe it's good that the game was postponed last week, but I don't know. I mean, I'm excited about every time we play coming up, and that appears to be in a few hours against Brentford. And I'm excited, unless something happened recently to change that. But I think we have a shot to win every single game that we're in, and it's exciting right now.
Andy, you are muted. I assume that was at some point to kind of follow on from the excitement of Mike.
Yeah. I was talking to obviously my 5-year-old's in a football league, and one of the dads was like saying to me, "We haven't played anyone yet," and he's a Liverpool supporter, and I was just like, I get that, but Palace took points off of like what was it? Pool. Villa took points off of City. Fulham took points off of Liverpool, and I'm like, these aren't easy matches. Like, granted, we played the teams in front of us, but to Mike's point, like, they're easy matches, but there's they're tough teams to play, and I feel like in the United match, it's nice to lose and think, well, Arsenal beat themselves there. It wasn't like United played us off the pitch. It wasn't like there were moments where you're like, oh God, we're regressing. It was like, no, we had that and we messed up. We beat ourselves. And it's so exciting to be an Arsenal supporter right now. I love it.
Yeah, it is. Like, you genuinely look forward to the next game, which has been unfortunately taken away from us a little bit this week in particular, and it's been a right pain.
He loves it so much that he's actually podcasting every once in a while.
I know, it breaks the mold. He's eventually going to get so bored of those little jibes. maybe.
No. It's if anything, I'll get bored of Hers, Jared, Owen, and Aston first, and that's why I won't pod.
Mike's just standing out there on the precipice as just a bastion of hope to return to podcasting. Drew, I mean, before I actually go to Drew, when you started that answer, Andrew, and you said you were talking and then you mentioned your 5-year-old, in my mind, I thought you were going to go through and say, I was talking to my 5-year-old about some of the tactical masterclasses of Mikel Arteta. It's just, he was coming back at me, challenging me on all these points. But yeah, maybe one for the future, that's for sure. You're on mute, though, if you're replying, though. I can see you talking.
You're not the only fetus that knows how to talk about football.
I know.
I was going to say, he is a tactical genius. So we played this weekend. We won 10-0. He scored 5 of the goals. And one of the dads legitimately came over and said, how do I get my son to be as good as yours? And I'm like, they're 5. He doesn't even track back to defend. He just stands there and does a roly-poly or a cartwheel. I'm like, they're 5.
That's how he scores the goals, with cartwheels and roly-poly.
I should have given him a recipe that was so ridiculous. I
should have.
Yeah, just...
It starts with the 5 a.m.
okay,
protein shakes.
I mean, five goals in one game. I mean, I don't think Brook Notton-Cuffy was scoring that amount of goals. I think he talked about saying that he scored at right back a ridiculous number of goals. I mean, I feel like you need to start putting pressure on your little one, Andy. It could be a future.
Probably should. 3 of those did come from defense. 4v4, small fields.
As in, so he dribbled all the way from the defense.
How many goalies? 0?
No, there's no goals at this age.
Oh, okay. No respect at all. It's all gone. He'll never make it. True. Let's bring this conversation back round to reality a little bit. And obviously, what we've seen as a difference from this season to the start of last season is, such a drastic change in form, in kind of ambition, in dominance, in the way that we play, in quality. How much credit does Mikel Arteta and Edu deserve in terms of a squad building aspect to how we've started this season?
I mean, I think they deserve the bulk of it, obviously. For me, it's always, I think we've finally gotten rid of the notion that we want Band-Aid players. I think we made that clear as well, as close to the end of the window when a lot of fans were still saying, we need a winger, we need a center midfielder. And while you can highlight the fact that we might need 1 or 2 in before the window closed, they made it clear that they didn't just want to bring in anybody. They had to fit the mold, the transfer agreement for the type of player we want to bring in. It also seems like we're now going back to targeting players that already have Premier League experience so they can have a better chance of hitting the ground running as well. These are all things that you like to see. It shows that they have kind of narrowed down and honed in on exactly what they're trying to achieve, how they want to achieve it, and they don't want to really compromise that. That's important as well. You do need some kind of flexibility in terms of how you build your squad, what's available. Sometimes you take a gamble on a player that might not tick all the boxes, but if there's some quality there, obviously, you want to maybe go for it. But for me, this is kind of one of the things that if you look at, if you're not someone like Barcelona, obviously, if you look at other clubs that are really well run, but also still fight for silverware, this is kind of one of the hallmarks of what they do. Bayern, even Real Madrid, to an extent, how they've brought in Tchouaméni and Camavinga in 2 summers, and we're fine with shipping out Casemiro off the back of that. So they had some sort of plan. They thought it through. So when you see that with us, it's encouraging, and I think we're reaping the benefits of that as well. Not everything is perfect at the moment, obviously, and I do get frustrated at people already getting aggravated just the fact that we lost to United, and I can understand that, but we're top of the league for a reason. We're grinding out results that I don't think we would have gotten last season or the year before. These are all things that you can point to say that we're still progressing, and that we're at that point now where I think we should, without question, be challenging for top 3 place for me. So it's good to see for sure. Like Andy said, it's exciting going every weekend when there's this anticipation. We haven't had that for a while. That's good to see.
Oh yeah. Just the buzz in the Emirates in particular is just something like that we've never seen in such a long time. I mean, when I was at Old Trafford, I know Mike, you were there too. The noise from the away fans. I know our away fans have always been stunning, but they were just unreal. Like, even at the point where we were 1-0 down, they were out singing the Old Trafford, and when we got the goal, it just took off. I mean, Drew mentioned
it it was of the away games that I've been to. I mean, other than maybe a Champions League away in Athens, this was by far the loudest crowd. I mean, it's and again, going down, we went down against Palace, and the crowd supported. We went down further against Palace, the crowd supported, but it thinned out. It thinned out. This game against
in the 3-0 away defeat last season.
Yeah, I mean but even at the end, there were still people supporting Mikel Arteta in stark contrast to the 5-year earlier nightmare with the "you're not fit to wear the shirt." So you can see the evolution of the fan base, both at home and away. And I have to say, Old Trafford was an incredible experience. Disappointing sucker punch way for the game to end, but an incredible show from the away fans, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon.
No,
a little adversity isn't gonna turn the fans at this point, and that's the credit that's been built up by this club so far.
Andy, Drew mentioned the maybe some of the criticism that came after the United game. We played Brentford later on today, and they beat United 4-0. We lost to United 3-1. We're losing 7-1 apparently today. that's how football works. Imagine if we actually go on and do that. That would be ridiculous. But how do you feel as though the United defeats after 5 brilliant wins will impact how we are? Because we've seen the kind of the response against Zurich, and it wasn't. And I know that we made a lot of changes, but we didn't play amazing, by any means. And even when we brought on Saka and Ødegaard and Jesus, things didn't drastically change either. So do you feel as though there is a concern that they may be a hangover from that defeat into this Brentford game still?
No, because to the point I said before, I feel like we weren't played off the pitch. We weren't, we played well. We had some bad luck. And yeah, so I think as the team progresses forward, Mikel specifically can go back to that match, rewatch video, and just say, hey, listen, we played well, right? We can take away from these positives, these strengths. And yeah, the Zurich match was a little strange, but again, it's Europa League. They were up for it. We had such a changed, lineup that we just knew it wasn't going to be as fluid. I'm personally going into Brentford. I think it's a good thing for us to have this break because it allows some of the players to get back to fitness. I'm a little bit more worried of the break than I am the United result because we were on a good run. I think if we played immediately after Zurich, it would have just kept our momentum going. So yeah, that's what I'm more concerned about is this little break that we're going to have just because I think the more we play, the better we're going to play. And again, the Zurich game wasn't ideal, but I don't see us last season winning that match. It's a draw because we weren't that good. And I just think there's that mentality to just keep fighting. So it's exciting again.
It is, yeah.
Who are we losing to 7-1 today?
Brentford.
Oh. Mike keeps saying that it's Sunday. I thought it was Monday. I'm just confused.
It's Monday as we record, but it's Sunday as this goes out. Yeah.
So professional. I'm going with the time that it's being aired. I mean, that's what we do. So
I love how Mike's traveling the world with a microphone.
I am.
You used to have a stand microphone, but you've actually taken real care of this handhold one now.
Well, no, the professional one I left at home for this trip. This is the rock band.
I can imagine Steph's hey, Mike, we leave in 2 days. We're going to be gone for 3 weeks. We're going to 4 different countries and a couple different states. Are you packed? Bell microphone. He's like, I'm good.
I'm all done. Yeah. That's all he needs.
Well, no. What happened was she says, "Are you ready to go?" And I said, "Yes, I'm ready to go. Hello, welcome to our vacation we're going to be having, and we're looking forward to 3 weddings and 3 football matches and a fundraiser and yeah. What do you think, Steph?"
Oh, I love it.
For those that are listening on audio-only platforms, imagine Mike holding a microphone and then holding it to the camera.
That's Drew, a professional right there.
Absolutely. They were all imagining that anyway because I weave I weave the visuals, in such a way that
Absolutely. I didn't need to do that. I just was it
no,
audio
that was actually
description?
that was insulting to our
I
listeners.
apologise. Drew, of course, that Man United game you referenced a second ago being a bit of a pain, and there was a significant reaction. I'll tell you what, it was the longest 5-hour drive home I've ever had. It was disgusting, genuinely. Trying to stay awake at 1 a.m. driving home was not nice at all, especially after you've lost the game. But what I felt was worse was this kind of sense that, Arsenal have had one big test. They failed that big test. It's all been kind of an illusion how good they've been. How did you kind of assess that defeat and where it leads us?
Look, it's tough for me because, you're not going to – I swear football fans think you're just going to win every match. and when you lose to a rival, all of a sudden it's like the world exploded. And yes, no one wants to lose to United, but any of us in this, obviously, on this podcast don't want to, given the historic Premier League rivalry that's involved. But it's difficult. A lot of people kind of look United at them now and they think that they're kind of like a wounded bear, so to speak, that they're there for the taking. But the reality is you can banter them all they want, but they did bring in quite a few good players this summer. Ten Hag is a very good manager. He just didn't hit the ground running for a lot of issues that have nothing to do with him as well. The club is a mess. It doesn't mean that he's a poor manager. It doesn't mean the players are poor. If they get running and going as they can, it's going to be difficult to beat them. So, and they already hit some sort of form when we came into that match. Old Trafford's a tough place to play. These are all kind of contextual things you have to realize. That said, I do think if we do have any ambitions on, I don't think our goal is to win the league this year, but I do think if you would ask Arteta, we would say Champions League is the minimum, and then anything fourth and up, is kind of a blessing, so to speak. I do think even if you go and lose, maybe you want to see something more. I do think it was a bit of a sucker punch for the result, as you say, but I don't think you can really draw too much from that. I don't know. I'm not, as usual, I don't typically freak out about poor results. Sometimes goal lines sort of flatter to deceive as well. I'm not taking much away from it. I think what I want to see is how we bounce back from that. I think we've already alluded to that before as well. And the key is, in seasons past, and yes, under Arteta as well, irrespective of the Emery era and the tail end of the Wenger era, we would sometimes one poor defeat would end up in 3, 4, and 5 poor defeats. Mm-hmm. So for me, if we want to have a yardstick about where we're headed, particularly this season, I want to see how we bounce back in the next match. If we come out all guns blazing, get a strong result, and immediately put it behind us, that to me shows us that we've actually matured as a side and that Arteta has matured as a manager. If we sink to another defeat, then I'm going to maybe be a little bit worried. I'm not going to freak out yet, but it'll be a bit telling if we kind of, if that one issue kind of carries over. And you could maybe make the argument that maybe it did against Zurich, but I don't know. Europa League away days are difficult, and also it's a second string side. So how much can you really draw from that? What I want to see is when the first 11 comes back in the league, what they do there matters to me more than what happened at Old Trafford for me. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because had we actually played the Everton game the weekend just gone, it would have been ironically the same 2 games that we then lost to Man United away from home 3-2 last season. We then played Everton. I know it was away, but it would ironically have been a game to respond against. We now instead go away to another side that beat us last season in Brentford.
And they're good and they're tricky, and it's a big test. No, Brentford are tricky. That's a big test as well. And again,
it's a great test. And if not for that game being played later today,
see, Andy, you paying attention?
if not for that game being played and that test being put in front of us, we really would kind of have lost everything from the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season, because we'd go from a disappointing loss that we've all talked about, you could take positives out of, and then literally had 3 or 4 weeks until the next game, which is another outlier that you almost can't see any rhyme or reason about it, which is a North London derby. I'm really, really happy that there should have been 4 games in between, but I'm happy that there'll be 1 or 2 if you include Zurich, because that is kind of what the team needs to understand where it stands. To go straight into a North London derby, even with it at home, is less than ideal. To be able to come and say, hopefully, we played a team that is not easy to go to and beat in Brentford, but they're certainly a team that we should go and beat. we go and do that, then I think all the confidence comes back, stays with us through the international break, and we go into the derby with a positive feeling. Otherwise, we almost feel like, it's like when when you're really getting along with somebody and one bad thing happens or one weird thing happens, and it's like, how do we get that back? So yeah, I agree with everything that Drew said with regards to the bounce back ability, because this team's weakness in the past has been getting into its own head, forgetting what it is and who it is and what they're capable of, and not playing to their potential when they're playing lesser teams. And that's what I think Zinchenko and Jesus and the continued evolution of this team is starting to stamp out, is those mental hiccups that come at times of adversity. So Brentford is going to be a massive test. It's an early game, which I hate for many reasons, but I hate it for Arsenal. And we'll see. But I agree. This is a massive. It's very important that this game be played.
Indeed.
Yeah, can I ask you guys something quick? Sorry, just because Drew brought
Sunday,
it up, and then Mike.
Andy, it's Sunday right now.
Got it. Okay, and that was it. That was my question. No. Aside from City, is there any other team in the league that you've seen play over the first 5-6 matches that you've thought, I'm afraid? Because
No.
I mean, Poole is the only other one that I'm kind of on the fence with, where I'm like, if we catch him on our best day, and like Jesus versus Van Dijk right now, I'm like, bring that on, because I want to see that before Van Dijk takes like his head out of his butt. But ultimately, there's no other team aside from City that I'm looking at and I'm thinking we should be afraid. Now, going to the North London Derby, I could see us being the atmosphere and the actual grandeur of the event, but there's no team where I'm like, they're better than us. I could see us dropping points to Chelsea. I can see us dropping points to Liverpool, United, because they're good teams, but they shouldn't be beating us like they have years past.
The problem is, though, Andy, like October, where we play Spurs, Liverpool, and City, unless the City game is obviously moved because of the PSV rearrangement, they're all in a month where we have 9 games. Like,
that sucks.
And that's the problem, is that, I agree. On paper, say opening day of the season, let's say 2 or 3 games into the season like we did, had we come up against a City, a Liverpool, even Spurs, I would have been sitting there going, we can win this. We can absolutely win this game. But the problem is, when we go into October and we play Spurs on the 1st of October, Bodo Glimt on the 6th, Liverpool on the 9th, Bodo Glimt again on the 13th, Leeds on the 16th, Man City on the 19th, Southampton away on the 23rd, PSV away.
Are they not faced with the same, though? I mean, they've got Champions League fixtures, I hate to say, but
yeah, they do. You're right. But I think obviously there's also that argument that the Thursday, Sunday is a worse kind of.
It's tricky.
Well, it is worse than Tuesday, Saturday. There's no question about that. I mean, it's literally.
There's also the context about the midfield question. Also, a lot of people don't really realize going to Bodo and pushing Winter is horrendous. So that's also
praying and get their manager, please.
It's the worst time to travel to north of the Arctic Circle.
We might get lucky and end up playing in Glimt that day, though.
For goodness sake.
Much more. They have an indoor stadium, so it's much better.
It's tricky. So, to answer your question, just for me, Andy, no, I don't look at any other side in the Premier League at the moment, and I'm not afraid. But as Tom did say, timing is everything. If we had the same fixture discussion at a later date, maybe you're not as worried. But on paper, no, I think Spurs play absolutely dire football, and you're squeaking results. Fair play to them. Fair play to them for getting results. But toe to toe, we should be beating Spurs, and they're the type of side that will frustrate us into getting a draw, and that's going to suck maybe. But no, I don't look at the same thing. I don't look at Liverpool right now. I see weakness. I look at other teams around us, Chelsea as well. Who knows who's going to get as their next manager? Even if it's someone like Pochettino, I don't think that they're Chelsea.
They got Potter.
I'm sorry, not Chelsea. I don't know what I'm thinking of. I forget. Anyway,
well, he will be fired by Christmas.
I know we're recording ahead of time, but we're not going that far back.
This was recorded before last year's Brentford.
No, so
Lampard's still the manager.
For me, I think the people that we're traditional rivals with currently, or the last couple of years, I see a lot of imbalance, and I see not expansive football. I see sides that are geared towards results. But as we've already said, we should be beating them when we go toe to toe. But it's tricky. It's the Premier League.
I'm not worried about any of those other teams. I am worried about us though, it won't be the players and it won't be the tactics that cause us to drop points against any of the teams, including potentially teams like Leeds or other teams in October. It's going to be our mental toughness and our ability to handle the adversity of fixture congestion and a lack of depth, potentially in certain positions that we've done to ourselves in deference to a greater scheme of not buying players just to buy them. It's going to be tough to manage. Be a kind of an interesting year to maybe for some behind the scenes video or something that we could find out at the end of the season, and maybe even if they did one this season, maybe Tom could get on it.
Oh, you're just going to keep bringing this up, honestly.
I don't know,
you're not getting to me, all right?
Completely on it, but maybe this year, Tom, it could be Tom's turn.
Look, it is,
guys.
I'm
I
just
just
proud
think
of
it's
my boy
nice that
Harry
we're doing a podcast and Tom's not playing FIFA. That's what I'm.
Well, talk about reaching back and bringing things up repeatedly.
Wow, yeah, I'm
that goes back 5 years.
I haven't played
Tom's
FIFA
like, you played FIFA once 3 years ago, and here's where we are.
It genuinely was about 3 years ago now. I gave it up. I think I
was it 5 years ago?
downloaded the game just for that tournament and then just deleted it during the tournament. That's how it worked. Yeah, unbelievable. Let's talk a little bit more about the Brentford game a little bit later on today. Andy, as I've mentioned, they smashed Man United, and it was a Man United team that were in a very, very different state to what they are in now. And it's also, I suppose, a different kind of Brentford team to what state they are in now, because Brentford have suffered some disappointing results. They're not going... I know they're 13th in the table, but they've picked up 9 points so far out of a possible 18, of course. Their wins have come against Leeds in a kind of a crazy 5-2 win, that United game I talked about, and then 3 draws against Leicester, Everton and Crystal Palace, all of which were score draws. They can't really stop the goals going in, which I think potentially is our biggest in this game, if you know what I mean. Do you want to answer the question, Andy? Or you meant to go, yes, Tom. Yes, I agree with you, and here's why.
Sorry, repeat it again. I was paying attention.
Well, where do you think the weaknesses are going to be for Brentford, and where do you think we're going to be able to utilize our strengths? Is that good enough?
I honestly, Tony's had a great start to the season, but I don't see him troubling. Yeah, creatively. I don't see where they can attack our back four. I genuinely don't. Tony's played really well. I just don't see where it could come from. And then, Brentford, it's funny because Mike always says how he doesn't like fantasy, but, they have such good defenders from a fantasy perspective. And this season, I'm like, I just don't see where in their squad they can contain Jesus. And then if for some reason they do, we have Martinelli and Saka just spreading them wide. And it's just, we're so dangerous. And then if Odegaard's healthy, we've got him pushing as well. I don't see how they're going to be able to handle us. Last year, they were really their shape was really good. They were able to just tuck in. And I don't see that this year. I don't think they can get us on the counterattack. I could see this being a 3-4-0 comfortable win for us.
Mm. Well, I mean, as we record, so I'm wary of talking about team news too much. But as of the 12th, a good friend of the show, James Ben, just tweeted saying, "I'm told Thomas Partey has returned to full training ahead of Arsenal's game against Brentford." So that would be a huge boost.
Are you triple captaining Ben Me then, Andy?
Sorry, FIFA's loading. What? No, Mike.
The players get off the bus. You could just tell.
Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that answer. For those listening that have no idea what we're talking about, basically, we did a podcast on Mike's show. I genuinely wasn't playing FIFA. I was just not listening to what was happening. And they asked me a question. I just said something about players getting off a bus or something, didn't I?
I mean, that's the go-to. That was the pulling a Tommy of the show before the Webby was created.
Indeed. Drew, when it comes down to Arsenal's kind of ability in games when they do concede to fall apart, we've not yet faced that besides the United game. And even then, we conceded, we came back, we got an equaliser, and it was kind of our desperation to try and win the game. And I think that there was that sense. I was listening to the Arsenal Vision, and I think it was Clive that was talking about the fact that there was kind of such a clear, like, oh, bloody hell, we can actually win this game. We can go and beat Man United at Man United. And then because of that exuberance to try and win, we left ourselves so open at the back and they countered. If we do concede against Brentford, do you have a fear that that could still kind of creep into our game? Or do you feel as though that there's enough learning in this side that they would have taken that lesson from Old Trafford?
I think there's enough learning in this side, but it's also up to Arteta as well. And as much as I think he's coming as a manager, he still, I think, has a few things he has to learn, and that comes with time. He's still a very young manager. So, it's up to us as, we top the table. We're the dominant side on paper. So we should go out and impose ourselves. And I think you need that kind of that aggression if you want to go on and achieve something considerable this season. So I think we do need to go on and kind of impose ourselves, similar to maybe our thoughts at Man United, but there has to be balance as well. We have to note that Brentford are a good side. Tony is going to cause issues. It's going to be a big test for Saliba as well. They're capable on the counter. They do have pace on the flanks, so they're also very well drilled. It's going to be a tough battle. So it's got to be about balance as usual. You still need to highlight what your strengths are. You want to impose stuff. You want to go out and play. That's what Arsenal used to do year on year. In the glory days under Wenger, it didn't matter who we came up against. United as well, we went out and we imposed ourselves. Spurs, same thing. Like, we weren't afraid of anybody. So if we want to have that kind of, I hate this word, God, I hate it, but we want to have that kind of swagger that you need, you have to go out and you have to, kind of put your best foot forward. But I think for me, sometimes Arteta struggles with the balance. Sometimes he wants to be too aggressive, or sometimes he wants to be too reserved. And when either of those things happen, typically we suffer for it. So if he can just maybe tweak it just a bit, find a better balance, allow ourselves to still go out and be aggressive, but also not kind of shirk what we know Brentford are going to bring to the table, I think we'll be fine. So I think it's a good learning test on multiple levels. This is another one. Tactically, it's a very, very good test for us to kind of, again, tweak things that we know aren't working, but also put faith in what we know that does. And I think we can't be afraid to do that.
I will get predictions from you guys as the last question in the show in a bit. I did want to touch upon kind of the postponements and the congestion of fixtures that we face. Mike, firstly, and feelers go to as in depth or as little depth as you like on your opinion about the postponements, but what do you make of the decision making around not only this weekend we're seeing some games go ahead? I find it a bit strange that Brentford can play Arsenal in London, near to London, of course, but Man United can't play their game against Leeds in Manchester. I find that a bit strange, but maybe I'm being naive. What do you make of kind of the decision-making around these games? And, of course, the PSV game that today we found out on Monday isn't going to be going ahead later this week.
That one seemed like it. I know there's not a whole lot of advance notice, but that one seemed like they could have just flipped the two fixtures home and away with PSV.
People will say, like, oh, what about people traveling? But are like, well, they're going to cancel it anyway. Like, it doesn't. Yeah.
Well, I do feel. I know a couple, David and Laurie, who the Zieglers were going to be at the Everton game and the PSV game. They're in London. They know. Are
they going home before the Brentford game?
Yeah, and they know how to have a good time in London, but they were certainly counting on two games.
Yeah.
And it sucks for those people, but I don't know enough about the police elements. I think you can always point out some inconsistencies in how these decisions are being applied across multiple sports, across multiple cities. If I am familiar correctly with the procedure, I think the Queen will be, in lying in state or something in Scotland for a while, and then going down to London. And I just don't know how any of that works. So maybe that explains why certain non-London games are being postponed and others aren't. I just don't have the energy with this to get in. It's different than COVID. It's different than the whole Liverpool fiasco with 9 negative false positive tests or whatever. This is just, it is what it is to me. And I can't get involved in all the fuss about it. Fortunately, it doesn't affect me in a financial way or a travel way. It would have had this happened 2 weeks earlier, and then I would have a very different opinion on it because it would be personal to me. But you said give as little or as much of feedback. I've given a lot of feedback, but very little actual information.
That's fine. We haven't been given that much information, so it's completely fair that we aren't able to give it. I mean, Andy,
I'm looking forward to the user questions though at the end of the podcast.
Oh yeah, the non-existent ones. That you're answering them right now, Mike, in the chat. Remember, that's your job.
That's true. Okay. I'm up at 3 a.m. for you, the listener, for the TGT family.
Exactly.
Community.
Andy, the PSV game has to be rearranged in some sense. There's rumors, and of course, by the time the show goes out, maybe we know how it's being rearranged, but there's rumors that it will require potentially the Carabao Cup game against Brighton to get moved or the Manchester City game to get moved because there are no spaces. There are literally no spaces between now and the World Cup after the international break to move this game. And is this kind of football and the organisation of FIFA with the World Cup and UEFA with the Europa League and the condensed kind of group stage? Is it the Premier League? Is it the FA? That they've been too ambitious to try and fit too much football. And is it fair on the players that this much football is happening?
I think it's a combination of all those authorities, but with the World Cup happening, you would think the FA, and I completely understand why they did what they did, right? But I also I think with the World Cup, they should have turned around and said, we get that this is the time where a lot of people in England are mourning, whether or not you like or dislike the royal family. But as Peter Crouch said, let's celebrate her life with football. She was a football fan. This is a great way to send off and just have kept the fixture list normal. So this wasn't an issue. I understand the whole police presence thing, I think is why some of the matches are being called off, but it doesn't make sense to me. And especially with the PSV thing, yeah, why not just switch the fixtures? Like you said, it was getting canceled anyway, right? So it's not like people, and if the Cronkies really wanted to jump in, they would have said, hey, we'll reimburse for your travels to get over there. Because you sometimes hear clubs that do that. But, yeah, it's awful because, when are we going to fit that in? It is absolutely absurd. I don't typically feel bad for the players for playing all the football. We have a big enough squad we can rotate, and they're professional athletes getting paid millions of pounds with scientists and nutritionists who are helping them go through these, crazy amount of fixtures. I don't feel bad for them and their bank accounts from that perspective personally. But I do think the authorities kind of mess this up a little bit because don't say hey, the government's going to let you play your sports and then go, well, hold on a second, we don't want to do that. That just seems wrong to me.
Why could they not? And this is the only opinion I'll put forth with regards to this entire Queen thing. Did no one think to ask her what her wishes would be if
were it to happen?
Yeah, if you happen to pass away, you're 96. If you happen to pass away during certain sports seasons, would you want there to be a 2-week mourning period, or would you not? Because if she had weighed in with that, or if the monarchy or the palace had weighed in with that, then that would have given cover to every single individual. If she said they wanted games to go on, then the Premier League is not going to get criticized for playing games. And if people boo at certain games in certain cities, as I know has been conceived of, which would, many people would find distasteful, it's not the Premier League's fault for playing the games. They're doing what the Queen wanted. So why was that
Mike,
not arranged? She had 50 some odd years to arrange that.
My guess is that she probably, as a fellow Gooner, said,
whatever helps Arsenal the most.
Cancels the games. We got to get Party back and healthy. Okay. Don't like what's happened in the midfield since he's been gone. Respectfully, just get everything canceled and let him get back to fitness.
That's actually that
answers a noble answer is what it is. I think that from my perspective, my criticism goes to the government. The government left it up to the sports organisers. If the government had turned around and said, this is what we're doing across the board of sports for these 2 weekends, follow it, then it's not down to those. But as I'm not going to get too political, but it's unsurprising to see them shake responsibility for something. Drew, before we go to predictions, kind of give me your final thoughts and confidence about not just Brentford's, but the rest of the season, considering how congested it is now going to be.
It's tough. But I kind of side with Andy on this one. Any sporting organization would look at any kind of scheduling situation and say, can we handle congestion, right? And as Andy says, you've got sports scientists, you have ridiculously well-funded physio departments. Athletes can handle things, and they're highly monitored. So if athletes can't, Arteta's going to know about it. And I think we'll be okay. We're not the only club that has to deal with this. Every club has to, obviously. So there's not much more to say on it for me. But I think overall, though, I think Mike does make kind of a fair point of, with things like this, maybe some sort of pre-planning would have been better, especially given how closely linked to life in the UK is, or any major European nation is, how football is, particularly with the Premier League. I don't know. Congestion, it is what it is. A lot of leagues have it worse off. If you play in Sweden, your season is only 5.5 months, and you're playing twice a week, every week, because they physically can't play in winter. So it's difficult. So if other clubs can go through very difficult fixture congestion periods, I think Premier League outfits should be able to do the same thing. So I don't feel bad for the players, obviously. But however, I do think moving forward, for whether it be a political issue or COVID or whatever it might be, I do think that an institution as gigantic as the FA, and the Premier League as a whole, need to do a better job in conjunction with whatever other government organization it might be to come up with better contingency plans, given whatever scenarios might arise. I think that needs to be fixed. Overall, though, congestion is what it is. You make do. Everyone's affected by it, so I'm not too fussed about it.
Fair enough. We'll see how it affects Arsenal over the course of this season. Let's end the show with predictions. Mike, Brentford away later today. What are your scores for the state of play?
2-2.
Scorers?
Gonna go with a 2-2. Scores for, Tony will get 2 for them because he's the only guy I know that plays for them.
Wow.
And he'll tweet something rude that will help us beat them later in the season when it's put up on the bulletin board. For us, I will go with Gabby Jesus with 1, and the other one will be we're going to go with Gabriel.
Lovely stuff.
Any of the Gabriels.
It's scattergun.
I get all 3.
Andy, prediction and scorers?
I'm going to go 3-0. I think Saka's going to break his goal drought. I'm going to go Martinelli with 1, and then
He scored the last time he played, dude.
Who?
Saka.
Yeah, he did.
Last time he played a whole game.
Scored against United.
Oh, yeah. You know what, guys? I don't need to be ridiculed coming on the show.
It's taken 48 minutes, but he's broken.
You guys are always mean to me.
I didn't come here. My disembodied head didn't come onto this podcast to be ridiculed.
All right. Tom's making fun of the grass length in Colorado. I feel bullied. No, I'm going to go 3-0. Saka, Martinelli, and then Party's going to score on his return.
Lovely.
With his foot or with his head? Has he scored with his feet yet?
Yeah.
It's going to be one of his 50-yard bombs is finally going to go in.
That'll be when I say we've turned the corner.
Sign of the apocalypse, Drew.
I think Mike's onto something. Brentford have the second most goals in the Premier League. They have more goals than we do. They're not going to be easy. So I do think we'll win. I think it'll be 2-1.
9 of them in 2 games.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not on to anything. I pick 2-2 every time I'm asked for a score prediction.
Fair enough. Listen, I was trying to give you credit, but if you want to take it back, that's fine. I know they scored 9 in 2 games, but it does show that they do have a lot of attacking potential. I think Tony will probably score, but I think we'll be all right. I'll go with 2-1. I think Jesus is going to break his lack of goals, and I'm going to go with a brace. He's up against Pontus Janssen. If he can't roast Pontus Janssen
And
multiple
Ben Mee.
times, and Ben Mee, I think he'll have a good day at the office. So I'll go with the Savior's Grace. It'll be a good call.
Yeah, from the looks of things, it's going to be Gabriel Martinelli up against Aaron Hickey, of course, with the narrative.
Big
of
test for
Arsenal
Hickey as well.
transfers then. And then on the left-hand side is Rico Henry, isn't it? So
I hope Hickey sucks.
I hope he's awful. I hope that all my tactical breakdowns meant nothing. That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah, I'm going to go for a 3-1 win. Jesus with a couple and Saka to get on the score sheet as well. Tony, as you say, probably going to get a goal. Or Mbuemo. He always manages to. He's just something about him against Arsenal. He's a decent player. So yeah, 3-1. That's going to wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for listening, people. Apologies that this isn't live, but I'm sure that Mike's been answering your questions in the chat box. No pressure now, Mike, to actually show up on that day. Mike, thank you for your time.
At 3:30 in the morning, so you're probably getting, as Andy likes to call, Merlot Mike at the moment.
Oh no! Goodness me! You know, we get those like spam bots in the chat. I'm gonna be able to do nothing about them. That's gonna be interesting.
Whatever name
this is
XXX emojis.
Yeah,
Andy and I are gonna start tweeting a day before and just invite all spammers to come into the. Like, if you want to ply your wares, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, you have to work out something with that. Goodness. Andy, thank you for your time. I know you're a busy man who doesn't podcast anywhere else, so I appreciate you jumping on it.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Short and sweet. I love it. Drew, thank you for your time, my friend. Always good to have you back on the show, and hopefully I'll be able to see you next time.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I was actually just talking to my family about yesterday. I keep telling them how bad I feel that they couldn't make the wedding. And I'm absolutely, I'm annoyed at myself. So I'll be back in Europe in 2023. I'm specifically going to England for probably like a week just to see you. So
I can't get married again. I'm just putting that out
No,
there.
but I'll make sure to buy you lots of beers.
I enjoyed your dinner plate, by the way. It was too late for them not to serve the extra dinner plate. So thank you for that, Dave.
Is that true? I didn't know that happened.
No, it's not true.
Oh, I was going to say, I didn't think we had plates.
I did drink all of Drew's alcohol, though, that day.
Yeah. It was, yeah. He drank your worth of alcohol, that's for sure.
Did he? Well, I'm glad I get out.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Do drop a like on the video. I hope you enjoy the rest of the pre-recorded content that's going to be going out. Of course, do bear in mind that the Brentford result will not be known throughout them, but we've got some great content with some great guests, and, of course, a loan update as well, which will probably be 2 days after. If there is any more up-to-date content, it will be the reaction to the Brentford game, which I will sneakily try and record for you whilst I'm away. But that could be interesting. We'll see you soon. A fantastic one. And as always, up the Arsenal.